Okay, welcome to Math Level C. In the website at the top, there's all sorts of good resources. The welcome brings you here. The Zoom room brings you to the Zoom room. You don't have to remember that link. The Zoom room is always open and never has a password. So last term, there were 4, if not 5, student study groups meeting each week. Sometimes I would be there, sometimes it was just students. But if you need a place to get together and work on homework or so on, this Zoom room is always available. Jamboard shows you the whiteboard we use. And I can save this and archive it afterwards, unlike the whiteboard in Zoom that vanishes. And so I will use my little stylus and tablet and write on things. Let me turn off my background for just a moment, just in case anyone is curious how I write. So I have one of these stylus and tablet things. The famous brand is Bamboo, but this is the just as functional but not as expensive brand. And so that's how I'm able to write on the whiteboard. I'm not expecting you to write on the whiteboard because you don't own one of these, and with a mouse it's really hard. But that's where we'll do stuff. And the link is up here on the top so that you can open a different window if you want. If you want to watch what's happening in Zoom, but also say, wait a minute, let me back up a moment and compare something, then you have that ability. You don't have to stay exactly on track with me during lecture. The next link is a textbook. And if I understand things right, there's a grant coming through to get you all codes for this. The first chapter is free. That's how they try and market this. But after the first chapter, you'll need a code. So I won't talk about the textbook too much now, but briefly, table of contents over here. The tools on the other side, there's, if you're looking for where the odd numbered answers are, it's in selective answers. I'll go over that again before you need it though. And the nicest thing about this book is every time there's an example problem, there's a video for it with several different people, including one in Spanish. So it's like a Harry Potter book where the things are acted out as you're looking at the pictures. So students I've had before love this, and hopefully we'll get you all copies soon. The lecture archive is in Zoom if you like that, and also YouTube, so that's up here. And then the last link is a free calculator from the website Desmos, and I will use this so that you can see what I'm doing as I'm typing with my calculator. It has some nice powerful features that we may or may not need to use based on which topics you get interested in. If you want to use this Desmos calculator, you can. You can use the calculators on your phone. And if you want a physical calculator to hold in front of you, then I can recommend one in a little bit. So those are all the links at the top. They're sort of the equivalent to the physical resources you would have. Questions about any of that? Now, what I want to ask first is, actually the very first thing is, if you are here, type here in chat. That's how I take attendance. I will do it. There we go. And that way I know who is here in case I forget to look at all the names while you're working on something. And also,
I'm driving, so I can't text, sorry.
That's okay. Let me just check you off then on a window you can't see. Miranda is here. And then the other question is, going all the way from 6 to 8:20 is really long. We're going to be fighting blood sugar levels by the end of that. So I'd like to set aside half an hour, either the first half hour or the last half hour, as a study session where I will be here. We can work on homework together and get some questions answered. But if you don't want to be here that half hour, that's fine. It's not actual class time. So do you want this to happen at 6 or do you want this to happen at 7:50? I don't know whether people need to leave to get kids to bed or they're just coming home from work and need to eat dinner. So
I don't get home till 6:30, so it really don't matter to me if I can look back at the recording.
Yes, there will always be recordings. Anyone care?
Did you say 6 or 7:50?
Right. Do you want the first half hour, 6 to 6:30 to be the study session, or the last half hour, 7:50 to 8:20?
I'd prefer 7:50.
Me too.
Okay. And it might be that we all decide to just have a little break and it'll be like 8 to 8:30 so we can all stretch and use the bathroom and stuff. We'll see. Okay, so far the votes are end of the class, a study session. Holler if that doesn't make you happy. Okay, let's keep going. Then in the website, there's these links at the top, and these are not the math topics. They are other parts of this website. So the first one talks about what it means to be a mather. And mather is a made up word, but we know what it means to be a reader. So what does it mean to be a mather? When do you sort of pass go? And yes, you are now done learning math for the sake of having to learn math, and you can use math for other things. You're just like we switch in elementary school from learning to read to reading to learn. Let me actually make the font a bit bigger. So read that on your own time. I'm not going to go about it now. The topics in that link to your achievements page. I haven't updated the sample students yet. They are still some of my students from last term, but you'll pick your code name once you give me a code name and then click go, and you'll see which things you have checked off. And there are oodles of achievements. So I do achievements for a couple reasons. If it was a graded class, then these would reduce the amount of quizzes and study groups and homeworks you would need to submit, that if you can't participate fully in those forms of assessment, then you can be active in the class in another way. And also in a graded class, everyone starts out with a minus. If you do 14 of these, the minus goes away. And if you do 30 of them, you get a plus after your letter grade. There's a movement in academia that nobody really knows once you're done with the class what a plus means. Does it mean if you get a B plus that you are someone that was reviewing the class and knew all of this and did very little work and then showed up for the final? Or does that mean someone that you were really struggling and worked your tail off all term and almost got an A, but not quite? So there's this movement to make the minus and plus measure class participation so that your future teachers and your employers can say, oh, this person got a something plus. They are trying very hard, and so on. So that's one reason the achievements are here. In ABSC, the achievements are even more significant since this is not a graded class. That if you want a letter of recommendation for a job, if you want some record that you did a bunch of good math and are ready to move on, then the achievements will keep track of all that you've done. Some of them are incredibly trivial. Ask one question during class, sometimes this term. Others are actually a bit of work. And part of this is that it's important to celebrate and recognize all the good things you have done. And too often in math classes, the standards are high, but you never get any credit for actually doing most of the things that make a good student, all of these good habits and ways to participate. So by listing them out explicitly and checking things off as you get them, then at least you and me in some email will go, yay, you've done this one, good job for you. I was amazed, by the way, when after marrying my wife, I got to know her family a little more, and they had high standards but never celebrated things. My family growing up also had high standards, but when you got a good report card or when somebody got a raise or whatever, then we would go out to ice cream or something like that. So little celebrations are important. So that's a lot of what this is to do, to make sure that you get that recognition. If you don't want to participate in the achievements, then you don't have to. But once you start checking these off, you'll see how fast they happen, and most people get excited about it. In a normal in-person term, I would print out a bunch of paper copies of this and bring little sticker stars to class, because there were always people that liked putting the sticker stars on their physical copy. If you want your code name to be blatantly obvious, There was somebody that emailed me in response to my welcome to the class email and said, can I just use my real name for my code name? Then you can, but this is a public website, so everyone will be able to see your achievements. Lots of students don't care. I will be as secret as you want me to be. So that's the being a mather and the associated achievements. Questions about either of those? I'm not going to go through and scan them all now. You can look at them yourself. A bunch of them, by the way, have like secret things when you click on them. So play around with that too. No questions. Usually there's questions here. None. Okay. I will just add one more time. I'm good at writing letters of recommendation. So a lot of you for either jobs or academic things will want that afterwards. So it is nice to have a record of exactly how you were a good student. Okay, our syllabus. Yay, finally. Okay, so class times, you're here, good job. The Zoom room link is here again, even though it is right up at the top. So there we go. We're going to do our study sessions probably at the end because that's what people wanted. We have 2 CRNs. And because we have 2 CRNs, we have what's called a Moodle meta class. So if I go to Moodle and log in, then here is our Moodle meta class. And you should see this when you log into Moodle. You won't see the one that's specific to your CRN because they're all sort of coming together here. One thing that Moodle does better than my website is forums. So we have discussion forums. The week 1 is getting to know each other. And you actually don't need to come into Moodle directly because there'll be a link I will show you in a moment. Other than that, this basically says go back to the website and here is the Zoom room in case you're ever confused about those. Please don't rush ahead in the discussion forums. I'm sort of adapting things I've used before, but I will probably find ones that are more relevant to our math level if I can have more time to brainstorm. So do them 1 week at a time. Questions about the Moodle or versus the website? Okay, here is how to email me. If you, for some reason, never have my emails in your email account, now you have it there. You have my cell phone. So you can send me texts. The problem with sending me texts is that there isn't a good permanent archive of it. So years from now, when you do want a letter of recommendation for a job, I won't have all of this nice stuff. Whereas if you correspond to me with email, then I can say, ah, yes, when Tiffany was about to be absent, she sent me a notice beforehand politely, all these other good things, right? I will have that record better. But every term, there are some students that just like using texts, and you are allowed to do that. If you need more office hours, then just let me know. I can come to Zoom and meet with you. Last term, there was a lot of impromptu things. People emailing me in the morning, hey, can you do something before lunch, rather than planning it far in advance, and that works too. I will talk a lot about tutoring later, but there's the Lane Support Hub and Trio, and we have one Moodle forum that is our Get Help forum. I encourage you to use the Get Help forum because people can subscribe to that, and then everyone will see your questions. And if you have a question, lots of other people in the class will have the same question. So if you send me a question privately to email, then I will answer it, but it's only helping you. Whereas here you can help everyone. Oh, I forgot to mention, you've been getting lots of Moodle spam, haven't you, from the people introducing themselves? I see people nodding. So if you want to turn that off, then you can go to the Getting to Know Each Other one, which is the only one it's turned on. And, oh, yours is optional. Maybe you haven't then. The Get Help forum is set to be auto. So anything that somebody sends a question to, everyone will get an email. And if you don't like that, then unsubscribe in this little gear up at the top. But I'm assuming if someone has a question, you want to hear it. Okay, so that's the handy links at the top. If you click here, you get a fold out thing. And this tells you what to do each week. Each week I will put a new one of these up. I can't plan too far in advance because I don't know how many questions you will ask as we go through the material. And I'll go through things at your pace. So let's look at what I want you to do this week. At the end, after the to-do list, then we get a summary of what happened, the topics of what we talked about, and then the Jamboard archive and the video in Zoom and YouTube. And these are just like placeholders right now because we're not done with our first class yet. But as soon as class is done and the video processes, which might take a few minutes, then I will update these links to make them real. Okay, what do I want you to do this week? So first, I want to see your face. So either have your camera on now, or if you're not here in Zoom, then send me a video of you doing some math work. It can just be a 2-minute thing with your phone and so on. And if you don't have your camera on now, that's fine. It doesn't have to be all of the time we're meeting, but I want to see you at least a little bit. If you get home right at 6 or 6:30 and are eating and feel awkward eating in front of the camera, I totally understand. But we have enough time together that you can turn on your camera a little bit. And that makes it just feel like a better sense of community, that people often feel a bit alone. They are the only one having this math problem question or whatever. And it just works much better if you can say, yes, there's friendly people around me. So that's part one. If you miss a class, that's okay. There's no reason to stress about it, but check in with the Jamboard and the videos, and then just send me a quick thing of you doing some of the math we did. That helps me know who was absent because of some unplanned thing, or who is absent because this is their routine, or who is absent because they're having some crisis and I should reach out to them and make sure they don't fall through the cracks. Okay, then I want you to connect with each other. So either attend a study group, that's great, or do the discussion forum. If you want to do both, you can, but for step 2, you're basically just connecting with your classmates so you're not too lonely. Then step 3, study. I will link to, after every class, I'll send out a long email with links to all of what we did and where they are in the notes. So everything we do, whatever we do today, will be on this one page. So review the online notes. You will see they include video links and textbook sections, so use those. And then practice with the homework problems. This will be easier when you get your textbook, but there's practice problems already on the website. Once you are feeling comfortable because you reviewed things, then assess yourself, check how you're done. There are sets of exercises in the website. I will show you how those work very soon. And you turn in a code. When you turn in the code, usually by email, but again, text is okay, then I will get back to you and say, great start, 5 out of 10, or almost there, 7 out of 10, or so on. You're trying to get 8 out of 10, so you can check off the achievement for those exercises. You keep trying till you get 8 out of 10. The other thing is that if you were in a normal in-person class, I would be very stingy with telling you which ones you got wrong, because it would be your job when you arrive in the classroom to check with your neighbor and say, here's what I got, what did you get, and compare your work and see how everything goes. Because being able to discuss your work and defend your work and ask intelligent questions is a very important skill. It's harder to do that remotely. It's one of the limitations of Zoom. So I will be much more generous this term and pretty much all the time tell you which problems you got wrong when you turn in a code. Step 5, since it's the first week, explore the website, especially that menu there, which I've just copied from up above. And then lastly, if you have earned any achievements already, then tell me and we'll start checking them off. Okay, questions about your to-do list for the week?
David, Cheryl has a question.
Sure. Oh, your hand is up. Okay, just call out. I'm not used to looking for the hand up thing.
I can't see what's going on behind this screen that says lower hand, yes, no, go slower. I don't know how to get rid of that.
Let me see if I can lower your hand for you. Is that better?
No, it's like a window.
It is like a window.
Can you see it?
I can't see it. Let me stop sharing my screen. Can you do the share screen button at the bottom of your screen and show me what you're seeing?
I'm going to end my call really quick and get on my laptop.
Sure, sure. If not, Cheryl, then I would just leave and come right back. So when I look at yours, you have stopped share. Yep. What were you talking about before?
I don't know. I can't see it now. Maybe it was something on your screen.
I don't know. I will go back to sharing mine.
Okay, it's gone.
It's gone better? Okay, yep. Yeah, I'm not used to looking for hands up, so just holler. There's not that many of us. We're grown-ups.
And when I do chat, do I push enter after I type the word?
Yes, you have to hit enter in chat. There we go.
Oh, from me. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I'm gonna fold up the fold out. Okay, before I go farther in the syllabus, I want to show you some homework. So let's look at that, because people always want to know. So this is our first topic, shape shifting, which is everything we would do to one number at a time. And your table of contents says there's some topics, and then we have 10 exercises about those topics, and then we have some random exercises. So we will talk about the topics soon, but while we're going through the intro, I'm just going to skip right to the 10 exercises. I'm going to make them a little bigger too. Okay. So here's your 10 homework problems for rounding when you get to this. And lots of students just print this out because it's often nicer to work at a table that rather than staring at a screen, but you don't have to.
Is that stuff we have to do this week?
No, well, we'll see. We'll talk about that too.
Okay, I just got on my computer, so where do I go to get to that?
That is the picture of the Lego figure. And then there's 10 exercises here and there throughout.
Lego.
So, but for now, just watch my screen because we'll actually talk about the topics above this. I'm just showing how the homework works. The random exercises have their answers. They are just if you want more practice. And every time you load the page, the numbers change. But the 10 exercises are always the same. And they're the same so that you have something to talk about with your classmates. If everyone saw a different version of this because their page was loaded differently, then you couldn't work together. When you think you have good answers, then you go to this form, and I'm sort of hiding this link in the brown text because I don't want you to go to this form until you've worked on the problems. And here you see exactly the same problems, but now there's boxes to check off. So I'm just going to pick some random things. So you'll mark off your answers. And then you'll do process my answers, and it gives you a code at the bottom. So this is what you will copy and paste into an email or a text to turn in your homework. And I can look at this and know which problems you got right and wrong and how you did. And this system has a few purposes. One, it doesn't take me much time to grade. If it was a normal turn in the homework and I have to grade it and write on a red pen all over the place, then I only have time to give you one shot at it. And you're not going to learn as much that way. Whereas this way, you can try this 4 or 5 times if you need it. Usually students only take 1 or 2 attempts, but you can try it more because I am not spending as much time grading each attempt. And also the fact that you don't start with multiple choice answers, but could look at them if you need to is sort of like a hint. So if you need the hint, you can go here. No one will know. That's okay. Okay, questions about how that works? No? Okay, back to the syllabus. So let me shrink it a little. So we're in strategic problem solving, and this is great. This class is real and it's fake. And what I mean by that is we're going to learn all sorts of things based on what topics you're most interested in that are applications of this basic math. It is mostly a skills class, but the applications are what makes it interesting. So if you want to learn a little bit about health formulas, or how to scale recipes for giant meals, or how to save for retirement, or any of these things, we can take little tangents and talk about those things. But for anything we talk about that's an application, then in the modern world, that's not what you would do at a job. If you were to go into the culinary field, there would be some computer at the restaurant that would scale all the recipes for you. If you were to go into nursing, then there would be a computer that would do all the health formulas for you. If you were to become an accountant, then there would be a computer that would do all the saving for retirement formula for you. So we are asking you to learn these things for two reasons. One, so that you know what's going on in those computers behind the scenes. You can use the software better if you know what it's dealing with. And also, whatever you do want in real life wouldn't be any worse than that. I'm not sure what math you would have to do on the job, but if you can do these things, then we know you can do the real things too. So as long as we're making you jump through hoops to prove yourself, we might as well make them ones that will be what's really happening in real life, even if computers are doing it for you. So this is a great class. It is practical. No one ever has to ask, when am I going to need this? Okay. Time and materials needed. An average student's going to spend about 4 to 8 hours doing homework if they're working to pass the class. So this class isn't graded. If you don't do a lot of homework, then you just won't learn as much, but no one is going to slap your hand. But hopefully you're all going to ace the final and learn a lot, and you'll need to budget a few hours a week to do that. Otherwise, it's sort of like you're ordering a pizza and not eating it. Like, why bother? Right? Because we meet in Zoom, then you need to be able to do that. Have with you paper and pencil, maybe a highlighter, a notebook. I'm not sure how you take notes. Some students take notes during lecture. Some students just use the recordings and the Jamboard afterwards, but you will want your own notes. If this was a graded class, you would only be allowed to use your notes on the final. So an important thing is to condense your notes into something small and useful. As it is, it's a good idea to have good notes because you will learn a lot of useful stuff and you won't want to have to dig for it later. If you have a nice, efficient amount of notes, then for whatever you're doing in math classes or other classes or real life work, then you can say, oh, wait, I've studied that and know where to look it up. Okay, you'll need a calculator that can do exponents and has a pi key. You can just use that Desmos website at the top. If you want to use this calculator all term, great, it works well. If you want to use your phone calculator, you can. I don't know about ABSE, maybe Anna can tell me. In the math division, you're not allowed to use a phone calculator on final exams, but you can up to that point in the term. And then there's always this panic where the people who have been using their phones have to figure out how a real calculator works. If you want to use your phone, I think you're allowed to all term because on remote classes, we can't really see what you're doing anyway. If you want a physical calculator, then the one that my students love the most is this one, which is 15 bucks. So it does everything we want. It tends to work nicely. It has a display that you can see fractions. It is not an overly complicated graphing calculator. It seems to be just perfect for the kind of math we're in. But you don't need that. If you're someone that likes the physical tactile bit of holding a calculator, then I should at least recommend one or I'm not doing my job. Okay, here's our book. My son when he does his online math, uses the cheap stylus I showed you. So 40 bucks isn't that cheap, but compared to the bamboos, it is. I wouldn't recommend anyone go out and buy a stylus and drawing tablet for your computer because of this math class. But if you have a bunch of kids that are still doing remote learning and stuff, then I should at least tell you that there are some somewhat affordable ones that exist out there in case you've only heard of the professional ones that artists use. Okay, there we go. Questions about all the time and materials? No. Okay, calendar, you can look at that on your own. Key resources. If you know of things that I don't, especially Patty or Anna, then holler out and I can add them later. I have a website page that we'll get to, this one with this arrow, that is all of the LCC resources I know of, because there is a student resource page on the LCC website, but it is actually missing some things. So I've tried to put together my own that's even more complete. So on your own, sometime read through the resources. It goes on and on and on. Where we are. But I want to highlight a few things enough to put them on the syllabus. So one is the Lane Support Hub. If I click this picture, then the Tutor Center, the Shed, which is the computer support, have all teamed up together in a Zoom room. And you just go to the Zoom room and it's like the entrance to a fancy hotel. There's a lobby kind of thing. And you say, hi, I want math or writing or computer help or whatever. And then the person who welcomes you says, great, here's the breakout room for that. They send you to the place you need to be. And there it is. The last two terms, the hours didn't kick in right away in week one. So not all the hours were open. Yeah, here it is, starting April 17th. So the Saturday hours aren't happening yet, but the other hours should be. So anytime you're stuck, the first thing I would do would be to either email me your question or use the Get Help forum if it's a math problem. But if it's a computer thing or things like that, the Lane Support Hub is there for you. And I've linked the Zoom room directly. Trio, I can't say enough good things about Trio. Is there anyone here that wants to brag about Trio before I do? No, okay, well, I will just say that when you're doing something that's tough, it is good to have people that have your back, right? The soldier that charges off across the battlefield without anyone watching his back is not a smart, brave soldier. He is about to get in trouble. You want people to watch your back. And Trio is a place at LCC that watches your back better than any other place I know. That the graduation rate for students that participate in Trio is incredibly high compared to the rest of the college. So you have to qualify in certain ways, but it is just a great way to not fall through the cracks. They have their own tutoring center. They have special advisors and things. They are great. Okay, Teresa Mason will soon be your GED advisor. I don't have a picture of her. I couldn't find one on Lane's website. But if you need advice about reaching GED goals, you can email me, but I don't know the answers. I will try and connect you to the right person. And very soon that person will almost always be Teresa. So her email is here for you. There is something called STEP at Lane, and that is services for SNAP recipients, but not TANF. And if that is you, then there might be extra things, people helping you buy calculators, books, whatever, as well as extra job search assistant and stuff. So Jennifer Sacklin and her page at Career Pathways is here. You can also see her email and appointments. She connects ABSE with Step at Lane. So if that's appropriate for you, then probably send her an email and at least say hi. Then there are people called early outreach specialists, and they are basically the people that connect you with everything else. So if you have an academic advisor, but you're just not a good mesh, something about them seems not the right person for you or whatever, if you're not sure what resources there are and so on, If there's some resource you've heard about but don't know how to start using it, then the early outreach specialists, they're like the person to go to get to everything else. And the one that works most closely with math students is Catherine Caligain. There's her picture. And alternately, if you're a Spanish speaker, then Norma Scoville is the early outreach specialist who's a native Spanish speaker. And lastly, the Center for Available Resources is also totally awesome. I have never had a student that visited that physically back when we were not remote and thought it was a waste of time. Even if they didn't have anything that seemed like they needed accessibility, then that place knows all the best fonts to make websites the most readable, that has advice for ways to fidget in class without anyone noticing. They just have all sorts of cool tips and tricks. So if we actually get back to campus, then I highly recommend stopping by, even if you think it's a waste of your time, because it won't be. Okay, students' rights and responsibilities, code of conduct, we'll skip over that. Then when reading the resources, I want to highlight just a couple more things. One is counseling and advising is a complicated place. They do a lot of stuff. If you are used to counselors being like, I have trouble with mood or anxiety or something like that, that's only 1/4 of what they do. Counseling and advising has advisors, what classes to take, how to make a workable schedule, how transfer programs work, things like that. They have workshops. So here's a slightly too small to read bunch of the workshops. They have, and the workshops are mostly about how to do personal growth stuff, how to set goals, live with your values, self-care, emotional intelligence for dealing with difficult people, and so on. And then they just are good at stress stuff too. Oops, and there's 2 S's there. One thing I want to mention that I don't think, unfortunately, is happening this year is they used to have a mental health first aid workshop, which I attended and was completely overwhelmed by how wonderful this was. I don't think the LCC staff member that ran it is still at LCC. She has retired, but she was at 9/11 and does all sorts of mental health first aid in heroic ways in real life. And wow, that was a great thing. So if you ever hear about this again back in future years, then that's great. Okay, what do I want? Okay, and the other one is help doing taxes. We can't all meet together on campus. Usually there are free experts volunteering to help people do taxes this time of year in the cafeteria at LCC. But just a quick reminder that taxes are extra important this term because you get your stimulus payments because of your taxes. So if you're someone that doesn't normally file taxes, then check in with whoever knows about that. Don't trust your math teacher, but don't miss out on your stimulus money. Okay, end of syllabus, emergency phone numbers, what to do with bad weather, stuff about me. So there we go. Phew, long time. Questions about the syllabus?
No.
No. Okay, I'm just going to very briefly do the rest and then we'll start math. So we have a study skills page, which talks about all sorts of good study skill stuff. We have a classroom library. There are physical books that now live in my garage because of being remote. If any of these books sound interesting and you want to borrow a copy, you can. I have students each term while remote that just sort of come to my driveway. I leave out the book they want on the front corner of my driveway and they wave at me through the window and drive away. So videos after each topic in the website, then there are some videos after most of them. You also have all the videos from the textbook once the codes arrive. But here's just a summary of good places online that have math videos: Khan Academy, Hawks TV, Learners TV, and these are the best YouTube playlists or channels that I have found for the math that we do. Ebooks, podcasts, apps, and OERs. If you want to know why we have a fancy website instead of using an OER, then it's because the OERs just aren't as good at this level, unfortunately. I would love to not have to design a fancy website. But if you look at them, come on. No, that one's not loading. Let's try that one. So if I want to see things, then go away. So part of it is that. And part of it is that, yeah, it's somewhat colorful and easy to read, but it's also just a little too blocky and awkward. And they can't do all the fun random stuff that we do. And OpenStax is going away, which is very sad. Anyway, if you like OERs, look there. Okay, playgrounds. These are places to play with math, maybe see different kinds of math that you're not familiar with. And then that resources page. There we go. Okay. Any other questions before I click on the little Lego guy and we start talking math?
No, I don't think so.
Yes, I actually do have a question.
Okay, good.
So that one place where the Lego characters, that link that you click on, is that where the homework is being assigned? Is that where we would go to view it?
Yes.
Okay.
So last term when I was teaching a graded math class, I told my students before the term started that nagging is important. There is a reason all the doctor's offices send you text reminders before your doctor's appointment, because that just makes life go a little smoother. Right? So I am going to start assuming that everyone wants due dates, and I will send reminders about due dates. But even in the class last term that was graded, the due dates weren't actually enforced. There's always people that have crises happening. There's people who don't have good computer or internet access at home and have to travel to do things online. So for many reasons, being hard and firm with due dates is not a good idea from an instructional point of view. But having due dates is great as far as learning things, right? If you try going to the gym or going running every morning, then it's easy to slack off if you don't take the commitment seriously. So I am going to speak this term as if our due dates were important, but if you turn in things late, that is fine. Our pace will just be going down the table of contents. We're going to start talking about rounding in just a moment, and pretty soon we'll have some exercises to do. And I would love it if you didn't have to do any homework. If this was like the Matrix movie and I could just sort of plug something into your back and ta-da, Cheryl knows rounding. But unfortunately, math is like pottery or martial arts. You just have to do it yourself with your own hands, otherwise it doesn't stick. And we have all seen this. You go to a math class, during class, everything makes sense. And then you go home and sit down and open the book and it's like, what, right? So watching other people do math doesn't count. I wish it did. It would make it easier, but you have to do work in order to learn math. You have to do your own practice. And I call them exercises instead of homework because homework sounds like something you do by yourself at home. And that's the wrong way to do things. If you go to visit graduate school, here, I will just show you these cute little pictures I've made. So how graduate students do math is they all sit around at a table working by themselves on the same homework assignment. And someone will get stuck. So the person who's stuck hops up and writes stuff on the board. Here's how I'm doing number 4. And then someone else will jump up and say, no, you made a mistake here. And the person will say, no, I think I'm right there. It must be later on. And they'll argue about it. And when I say argue, I mean, it sounds like arguing. My wife, who grew up in a very no conflict household, not allowed to raise your voice, couldn't stand visiting me in grad school. But eventually they'll figure out where the problem is, and then they all sit down and ignore each other and work again until someone gets stuck on a new problem. So doing math in groups is much more efficient, and you are not in grad school, so you can actually talk about other things too. It's not like you have to be only focused on math. But I want you to be working in study groups as much as you can. Any homework you're doing all by yourself, you are kind of doing it wrong. Okay. Other questions?
I think I missed earlier when you said, hold on, the to-do list. You said, are there any questions about the to-do list? I
Okay,
think
let me open up the syllabus and look at the to-do list. So fold out, there's your to-do list.
okay, but how do I get there?
How do you get there? You click on the syllabus, the blue one.
Okay, the blue one. Hold on, I gotta write that down.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then there's this fold out you click on that unfolds. And I have to use fold outs because once we get 10 of them, it's not going to work to make this page so long.
Okay, so what part do I click?
Just anywhere on this rectangle.
Oh, on the top bar. Okay. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the week 1.
That's your to-do list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we talk about rounding?
Nope.
Okay. So shape-shifting isn't an official name for a math topic. I'm using that nickname for all the things we do to just one number at a time. So consider when somebody rolls a die 1,000 times, how many times did they get an even number? 499. So one thing we can do is write numbers as a fraction. We could write the same thing rounding as a decimal. We can round numbers. We can take numbers and write them as percent. 0.5 is about 50%. And lastly, if it was a measurement, we can talk about measurement units. So 0.5 feet could be 6 inches and so on like that. So first we're going to spend however many classes it takes to talk about all the things you do just with one number at a time. Does that make sense as the place to start? We're not going to work with expressions and equations until we can do things with one number. And the first thing that everyone wants to see what the instructor feels about it is rounding. So before we talk about rounding, we need to talk about place value, because that's how we measure how precise things are. For example, Lego bricks are So Lego bricks are accurate to 2/1000ths of a millimeter, and we'll see more examples in just a moment. So let's fill in this place value chart. I have a special thing that lets me grab things and put them on the whiteboard. So actually, I'm going to copy it both ways. Okay. So I can't write sideways very well, but I'll write on the one that I've rotated. Tell me, what are the names of all the place value columns? Do we start right by the decimal? What place value do we say the 6 is?
Ends.
Tens, almost. Sevens
For
is 10.
some reason, I'm only seeing the top of the page.
You're only seeing the top of the page.
Yeah, mine's all I see is set background and clear frame.
I don't know. I can stop my share and restart. Does that fix it for you?
No, but let me try and fix it on here. I'm trying to look at the zoom and look at the shape shifting, whatever that is. And it's not allowing me to do half screens.
Are you on a tablet?
No, I'm on a Chromebook.
Chromebook. Chromebooks, I'm not sure. Right,
Yeah, because if I make it bigger, I can see everything. But then I can't see what's on the next page. Do you know what I mean? So, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I can show you my whole screen, but I'm not sure how much that helps. So if I was to share my whole screen with you, then you would see I have Zoom going on one side, I have the chat over here, I have this, so if somebody's kids start screaming, I can mute them. I have a normal website browser window going, so if I get an important email, I would know, because sometimes people send me one in class saying,
Yeah, I think it's mine because when I pull you guys up, I have to like make it smaller. And when I make it smaller, it crushes everything together.
Okay, I don't know. I would focus on the Jamboard if you have to pick only one.
Okay. And where do I get to on that? Is it on the
Or I would focus on the shared screen, right?
okay.
Then you will see as I move back and forth from thing to thing, what matches my voice.
Okay.
Can you make that full screen?
Yeah.
Okay, where were we? So 7 was tens. So this 7 isn't actually a 7, right? It is 70. It is 7 tens. Okay, name another place value and I'll write it in.
Ones.
Ones. So the 6 is the ones.
Hundreds.
This 6 really is a 6. So hundreds. So this 8 is 800. And so on. Okay, we could keep going. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, and so on. Let's talk about the decimal ones.
Isn't the 5 tenths?
Tenths, yes. So our convention is that for all the ones that are decimals, they will always end in s to make them different than the whole number ones. What is the 4?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. And the 3?
Thousands.
Thousands. And then they keep going. So the 2 is 10,000ths. And the 1 would be 100 thousandths. The grammar police have disagreement about when you put dashes and commas as you write numbers. So if I don't do it the way you were taught, then that's okay. We're just okay by different versions of what's correct. Okay, so the two lessons here are the pattern is the same, going up and down, tens, hundred thousandths, tens, hundreds, thousandths, and so on. The ones only happens for the place value that's bigger than the decimal point. And the other lesson is to realize that except for the ones, these numbers are all sort of lying to us, right? This isn't 7, this is 70. This isn't an 8, this is 800, and so on. This isn't a 3, this is 3 thousandths. And if you're not used to thinking about it like that, then stick it in your brain that that's how things are. Okay. Once you think about place value, the next task is to put things in order. So which of these is smallest of these 4 numbers?
$2,608.
Yeah. And then after that, somebody else call it out.
2,680.
So if this doesn't make sense to you immediately, or if you have a kid at home that is learning this for the first time, then both of these have 2,000s. Both of them have 600s, but this one has an 80 and this one has an 8, and 80 is bigger than 8. So it's the same type of thinking from the previous slide where this isn't an 8, it's an 800. This isn't an 8, it's an 80. This one actually is an 8. Okay, but let's finish the problem. After this comes
2,860.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what's happening in the, actually, I'm going to try and make a box. I can cover these up and not worry about them. All I care is that 800 is bigger than 600. The rest in the red box, those details, that doesn't matter. I'll keep my box for later. Okay, and the last one was 20,680. And for this one, I'll cover up things until I get to one that's bigger than its equivalents. Anything with 20,000 will be bigger than the things that are only 2,000. Right? Okay, now we get to what might be tricky. We're going to do the same thing with the decimals. Okay, which of these is smallest? Maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. Maybe we should need to think about what's biggest first. Tell me what you're thinking.
Could it be the longer the one, the 574,905? But then I see the 57949, and this one is like 05 over.
I think that's the longest one.
Should we start just by picking 2 of them and seeing which one is smaller or bigger? So it sounds like we want to compare 574,905 and 0.5
So you,
7,
9,
1.
4.
you gotta go alphabetically almost.
Okay, so
then-
it'd be the bottom one.
Yeah.
Going to
You go digits, and then whenever, like if you get to the 5th digit, whatever the highest number is on that. So almost like
wait for a moment. Okay. So did I have it? I thought I loaded it. Let me paste. There we go. Okay, so is this one smaller or bigger than the other one?
One's bigger.
It's bigger. So we'll use our cover it with box check.
It just looks a little easier when they're laid out that way.
Yeah. So they both were 5/10, and they both had 7/100ths. But then when we get to the next digit, 9 is bigger than 4. So yes, that one is the bigger one. Okay, so we have done this one and that one. What about the 57429? Should I write it above or below?
Wait, 5, 7, 4, 2, 9, and 9, 1. So it'd be 5, 7, 4, 9, 1 would be bigger than the other one.
Yes, I'm not sure I'm quite ready, to look at the second one though. I just want to know, should I put this one up top or down below?
Below.
Below.
5, 7, 4, 2, 9. So when I take my box, the 5s are all the same, the 7s are all the same. Oh, no, that's a 9, so that's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that I should take this one and erase it. And it has to go above the one that is 5, 7, 9. Maybe it's all the way at the top, or maybe not. Let's see. So I will take my box, bring it to the front. Okay, so 5s, 7s, 4s. So far these two are equal, right? And then when I move my box a little more, then yeah, this makes sense. The 2 should be earlier than the 9 in my list. Okay, so we have 3 out of the 4. Now we have, I'm going to space these out a little, which means I finally want to turn this one into a pasted version of itself. So one more to do. Okay, so these are spaced out a bit. We can write our last item 57491 in any place. Where should it go?
Would it go 4, 9, 1? So would it be under? Okay, hold on. 5, 7, 4, 9, 1. Would that go before? I mean, after the 05?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe you can see it already. If not, I'll use my box. So, oops, bring that to the top. So the 5s are the same, the 7s are the same. It has to be with the 4 group, right? We're not going to move it to the bottom. And the 9s are so far tied, close race. But then at the last moment, the 01, the 1 pulls ahead of the 0. It is bigger. So one moral of the story is the longest decimal isn't necessarily the biggest or the
that's why
smallest.
I'm confused for a second.
You just have to use your box, check one digit at a time, and see when things finally get different from each other. If these seem tricky, then as a warm-up, do more of them that don't have decimals, because it's the same process of using your box. So doing it without the decimals can kind of be a less confusing one. Okay, does this picture look familiar? It was all in the news almost a year ago. If you haven't seen it, then Gatorade asked paid this guy a bunch of money to make an ad, and yeah, enough of the ad. So he's dropping liquid and timing it just right to make a picture, and then as the camera flash changes, then it looks like the person is actually running. Pretty cool.
They do that on videos with
So
like
the same
rice
illusion
and
you see
stuff.
when you have your car tires acting funny in a video, but on purpose. So he had to measure things accurately to the millionth place. So we are going to confirm that, does this number, if you actually read about it in the news, is it accurate to the millionth place? So count them with me. So we have ones, the 7 is tens, the 1, I'm at tenths, the 1 is hundredths, the 4 would be thousandths. At this point, I'm going to write something so I don't lose track. So that's the thousandths. Then the 2 is going to be 10 thousandths. The 8 will be 100 thousandths. And yes, the 6 will be millionths because that comes after 100 thousandths. Okay, messy, but you are not judging me on my artwork. Okay, so far we're reviewing place value. Now we get to the part that makes students grumble.
Lay down. Lay down.
We have an issue that decimals are not always as accurate as they look. And the most common source of fake accuracy is division. So here's 3 different stories about 40 divided by 7 is 5.714286, and on and on and on. So the first story, I'm planning my kid's birthday party. There will be 6 children attending, so I need 7 party favor bags, including one for my own kid. I have 40 pieces of candy for the bags. So we have to do 40 divided by 7. How many pieces go in each bag? I'm not sure I want the... There. Oh, okay. So here we are doing 40 divided by 7.
Which is 5.17.
Oh, I don't have that on. That's why. Okay, now I got rid of the word inches. So that looks like the same number we just used about his fancy measurements. But rounding this answer with any decimal places doesn't make sense. No kid will get 7/10 of a part of a candy. We should just drop all the decimal places. Each kid gets 5 candies. That would be 48. And then I eat 2 candies because I'm the parent.
Mm-hmm.
How about number 6? A pharmacist has a small container. whose label tells her it contains 40 milligrams of medicine. She divides that into 7 doses. How many milligrams are in each dose? So we're still doing a 40 divided by 7. How much should we round that time?
Well, technically, okay, hold on. Well, you don't want to give them less of the dose because that 7 is higher. So should you go up to a 6?
So if you want to read the small point, in this case, we could do 5.7 or 5.71. They both make sense.
Okay.
And the 5.7 is actually better. A pharmacist scale usually measures to the 10th of a milligram. So we can't actually, with the equipment she has, be more accurate than
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
that. So if we did more, we'd kind of be bragging. We would say we're a super pharmacist that can do better than our equipment actually says.
That would be an impressive pharmacist.
Yeah. Number 7 is the same. A carpenter has a 40-inch board and cuts it into 7 equal lengths. How many inches? Well, we could say about 5 inches, rounded up to 6. Can you cut to a 1/10 of an inch?
Mhm.
Sure, that's not too hard if you've had practice with a saw. How about 1/100th of an inch?
No.
Yeah.
Probably not without some really fancy bench equipment, right? So 5.7 is probably the right answer. So all of those decimal places happen when you do 40 divided by 7. But our real life answers aren't as accurate. They don't have the millionth degree accuracy. So we get this general rule for accuracy, which I will put on the Jamboard just because it's important, and things that are important we should keep on the Jamboard. When we have a bunch of decimal places, usually because of division, then the general rule is to use the same number of decimal places as we were given, or perhaps one more. So if you have a problem where something was measured to the tenths, maybe your car gets reliable distances to the tenths of a mile. If your car says better than that, it's probably lying, by the way. Odometers aren't that accurate. Then, yeah, if people have measured things to the 10th of a mile, you can trust that the tenths are accurate. So keep using tenths of a mile. On the other hand, it's often good to add one more decimal place, because just like sawing a board, if you cut things into small pieces, they're smaller. You can be a little more accurate when you divide things up into piles or pieces.
Well, also when you go bigger, you can always cut down, but if you cut too short, you can't use that board.
That's true too. So here's our general rule for accuracy. Use the same number of decimal places as in the original values, or maybe one more. So Clara cans 15 pints of salsa. There's 16 pints in a gallon. How much of a gallon did she make? So I'll take out my calculator, which means I need to go to the calculator. There we go. And do, she has 15/16. I'll put that on, oops, the Jamboard too. Should we say she has 0.9375 gallons? And that is 15/16, right?
Wait, what?
When I do 15 divided by 16, I get that many decimal places.
Mm-hmm.
Can we trust them all?
Mm-mm.
No, she's not measuring things to tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths of a gallon. No one in their home kitchen would do that. How about that decimal? Is that going to work?
What, man? That was cool. Stop. What was your question again?
Is 937 still bragging too much about her accuracy? We got rid of the
Yeah, probably.
yeah, hundredths, tenths, hundredths, thousandths of a gallon. Now it's kind of debatable. Can you measure something to better than a tenth of a gallon? Sure.
Mm,
Can you measure something all the way to a hundredth of a gallon?
mm-mm.
Maybe.
Well, I
not.
mean, yeah.
So I would accept 0.93 or 0.9. Either of them seems reasonable ways to do this.
Maybe.
Following our general rule, I would use the 0.9. Our original things had no decimal places, so we used one more. That makes sense. She's making smaller portions. She can be a little more accurate. On the other hand, knowing how big a gallon is, I can do better than just a tenth of a gallon if I'm pouring liquid. So if you wanted to say she's a good chef and can do hundredth of a gallon, then we might believe you.
Well, also with those, when they make salsa, they can make a smaller thing on the side if they needed to.
Right. It might be that her pint mason jar actually has marks on the side and she knows things.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, here's your definition. Rounding, we're reducing the accuracy of an answer. And ideally, we're removing this fake accuracy. We're going to pick some place value. Say this is the one that we can actually trust. Everything smaller than this, we're bragging. And then we'll make everything to the right 0. In this case, I just got rid of things. But to be official, I actually should have taken this 3 and said, there's a 7. The 7 will make the 3 go up one bigger and be a 4.
Stop.
I would have looked at the 7 and said, this 7 changes the 3 to a 4. One of the digits that we just made, no, of the digits we just made 0, if it's 5 or more on the very left, increase things. We just talked about that. And then don't change anything that is farther left of that. So let's do a couple examples. Okay, 4,573.1. How do I round that to the nearest ones? I'm going to take the ones. That's the one I care about. So that's picking the right place value. I take everything to the right of that and make it 0. Goodbye, it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Was the first thing that I got rid of
Higher than 5?
5 or bigger?
No.
No, so my 3 stays the same. And anything to the left of that, I would never change anyway.
Wait, what?
Anything to the left of the 3, then it's safe, it never changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tens. So I will start by writing my number, 4,573.1. I will pick the tens, the 70. So that's this step, right? I'm going to make everything 0. That's to the right. So that 3 becomes a 0. Was that 3 I just took away 5 or more?
No.
No.
Easy call.
So the 7 stays a 7, and everything on the left side is half. Okay, whoops, hundreds. So 4,570. I'm going to say the one I care about is the hundreds this time, picking the right place value. I'm going to take everything to the right and make it 0. Is the biggest of those 5 or more? Yes, it was 7. So that means I have to take this 5 and change it to be a 6.
Change it to a 6.
Okay, lastly, thousands. I'll write over here because I'm running out of room. So where's my thousands? That's the 4. I'm going to take, after picking that value, take everything to the right and make it 0. What's the biggest one I'm erasing? The 500. So that's a 5 or more. So after I write my zeros, I have to take that 4 and make it bigger by 1.
Okay, wait, I'm confused. I got lost.
At which point?
Why are you rounding it to a 5? Was it because you looked back on the 573?
Because I had the 4,573.1.
Mm-hmm.
And when I wiped out these, the biggest one was 5 or more.
Oh, okay. Okay, now it makes sense. I thought you were like on the 4 for some reason. Like exactly, but you can't go over. So I know what you mean.
Okay. And we write on the same one for here. When I wiped out those, the biggest one was 5 or more. Okay, questions about that? More questions? Should we do some where we're rounding to decimal places? Probably. Okay, so tenths. So I'm going to take my number 1.95283. Do you want me to put my steps on the same slide so you can see it?
Please.
Yes, please.
Okay. As you wish. There we go. So first, pick the right place value. So I'm supposed to pick the tenths.
Am I the only one seeing part of it?
They can see it all.
Weird. Okay.
Did it help if I stopped sharing and share again, or do you need to push the full
Well,
screen?
actually, I was writing it down. I'm on the last 2, so if you could scroll it down a little bit for a second.
I'm sharing my whole window, so I can't
Okay.
scroll
I'm
down
gonna
what
go
you're seeing.
back and find it. Okay, I'm good.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had picked the tenths. Now I'm going to make everything to the right of that 0. Is this 5 going to make the 9 get bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. So let me write this out in steps then. So we have First we go 1.9 and we're going to get rid of 5283. Right? Going to get rid of all of those. But the 5 is going to make it bigger. Okay, now what do we do? So when I write that, I'm going to get 1 point, and then I want to put like 10 as one digit, and then I can't do that. What do I do?
Make it
Makes
2.
it another whole number.
Yeah, so I have to carry, and that becomes 2.0. You can think of it as 19 becoming 20, if that's easier to think of than 1.9 becoming 2.0. Now, do I have to write out all these zeros that I got rid of?
Not behind the decimal.
No, right? This decimal is the same as that decimal. It just looks more complicated. So I don't want to write the one that's more complicated. However, I have to write this 0. Not because 2.0 and 2 are different. They are the same. But since it said write it to tenths, and that was my job, if I just write the number 2, I'm not doing what they ask. So yes, 2 and 2.0 are exactly the same. The numbers are the same. But the job they wanted me to do was put a box around this one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Should we do the hundredths also?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want is the 5. That's the hundredths. I'm going to get rid of everything to the right of that. Does getting rid of a 2 change anything?
No.
No. So ta-da. Thousandths. So I want to mark my tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Now I'm going to get rid of an 8 and a 3. Is getting rid of the 8 going to change anything?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I want to step back for a moment. I'm writing things different on purpose. On this slide, I put my scratch work off in a cloud on the side. On this slide, I sort of did steps going down. You can write things how you want. When I'm writing things, if I'm talking about decimals, I want to keep my decimal points lined up. That's usually a smart idea. Just like in the figuring out which order things go in, if I didn't line up my place values nicely, then I couldn't grab my rectangle and cover things up well. So neat writing can save you from making silly mistakes. We will all make silly mistakes anyway, but writing neatly is a good habit. Does anyone want more rounding practice?
No, I think I'm good.
You were quiet, I'm sorry. Speak louder.
Oh, I said I think I'm good.
You're good. Oh, okay. Anyone want more of these? We are not in a rush. Okay, the answers are here. So if you want to do more when you are done with class, maybe in the next day, you can check and see how well you understand things. As a tangent, when I started teaching Math 20 many years ago, I was not allowed to give out answer sheets. That was part of the official LCC math division policy. So these problems have answers, but as we go through the online lecture notes, then some problems don't. And that's just because I haven't had time to put all the answers in yet from the days when I was not allowed to do that. It was a pretty recent change. Okay, this one is fun. It is harder to find other people's mistakes than it is to just do it right the first time. Because when we see other people's work, then our brain naturally wants to trust what they did. Last term, by the way, when I taught a graded class, then we had an oral exam part of the final. After the students did a written final, then we would meet in Zoom, either individually or in small groups. And these were their classmates having made mistakes on the final. Could they find the mistakes and fix them? So we could do a similar thing if you want this term. It is a good end of term activity to try and fix other people's mistakes, because it's harder than just doing it right the first time, and you can end the term saying, yeah, I am hot, I can do this. Anyway, where is the mistake in this problem?
They didn't round the tenths.
They didn't round the tenths. Let's see, tenths. So going to tenths, they picked the tenths. They got rid of a 4, 6, 9. 4 doesn't change to the 3. No, I think the tenths is okay.
Okay.
Is it when they rounded to the thousands?
Yes. Is 478 closer to 0 or 1,000? It's less than 500. Right? So when they got rid of they said it was 478. I need to round it to this thousandths place. So I will get rid of the 4 and the 7 and the 8. Should the 4 have made the 0 here into a 1? No, 4 is not 5 or bigger. So this should be just 0. Good eyes, that's tricky. Anyone have questions on that one?
No.
Okay. We were warned, or should have been warned, not to round in the middle of a problem. If we round too early, there's error. So on Eugene, it rains about 1.15 inches a week. How many inches is this per year? We know there's 52 weeks per year. If we round correctly, we get 59.8. If we round incorrectly, change the 1.15 into a 1, then we get 52. And maybe those extra 7.8 inches mattered if you were a farmer or clearing out your gutter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So don't round in the middle. Wait till the end to round. I give you another comparison here if you can. And that's the end of rounding. So we've done our first topic. There's some videos. We also could go to the textbook and, oh, not that one, that one. So when I first looked at rounding, then decimal accuracy was the first part. And it said 1.1 and 4.1. Let me put those here. And then later we got to rounding. Where was rounding? I guess it was estimating we haven't done. So, okay, what I was trying to say was these are your textbook sections. In the light brown font. And this little symbol here means section. That's not me, that's a real thing. I'm not inventing it. So if I wanted more practice with rounding, then I could open our textbook and you could do this because the first chapter is free and say, where is this with rounding? It's chapter 1, place value, rounding numbers. There it is. And I have more example problems. All of the example problems have videos. There's also this thing that pops up and you could do one to check if you understand it. You can see all their stuff. And then you can do some homework problems and see if you understand it. So all of these resources are there for you. The videos appear over on the side also, but that's usually not quite as convenient as clicking on the one next to the right example problem. And if you want to check your homework, you can. That's over in the supplements. And then selective answers is a PDF file that has the answers to the odd numbered problems, just like a normal textbook has odd answers in the back. So if you want more practice, there you go, you have a textbook.
So it's not mandatory to do that.
I'm not going to collect this homework. If you have questions about it, then I certainly want to answer your questions.
Okay, so we have homework. What's the homework again?
But how does the homework work? We keep scrolling down a little bit. So let me actually go back to your syllabus. So for the to-do list, then when you get home, look at what we just did with rounding. Because like I said, it's going to run away from your brain. That's just how math works. So review what we did, maybe with the Jamboard and the recordings, or maybe just reading the website. Then, if it helps you, say, I'm going to go to the textbook sections, see more example problems, watch more videos. The lecture itself gives you a few videos, although I'm not prioritizing hunting down more of them because the textbook gives you so many. If you need more of them, let me know. And one of the achievements is finding another video, and I will put it on the website for everyone. Then, why is that? There are YouTube problems, and you can either watch the video by clicking that link, or you can see all the steps, or you could just check your answer. So these are problems that you can use to check your work and make sure you understand things, seeing as much as you want. Then there's a red box that says, if you just want to do a little bit of homework, if you want some structure and guidance and not just to flounder around in the book, then these are the best problems. Myself and some other math teachers have looked through the textbook and said, if you have a typical math background, this is a little bit of review for you, but you're probably very rusty and so on, then these are the best ones to do. So I could just go to the textbook, say, go to page 9. That's problem set 1-1, and do these problems and see if I did things right. If you want more, then you have the whole textbook. And every topic we do will end with a green box with videos and a pink box with more textbook stuff. We don't have homework yet. Once we get through with estimating, which we will very quickly, we have videos for estimating. We have the best textbook problems for estimating. I could just go right to page 31. And there we go. And then we get to these 10 exercises that you've seen before. And these are the ones that have an achievement for finishing. If you are a very well-prepared math student, and this is just a bunch of review for you and you're pretty on top of things, you can jump right to the 10 exercises and not use your textbook at all. But for most students, then it's good to get some extra practice before you turn these in. If you want even more practice, then these are the kinds of things that will show up on tests, the random ones. And you can reload the page and they will change, and you can do them as many times as you want.
So the 10 exercises is like homework.
That's the like official homework. If it was
When
a
is
graded
that due?
class, that's what I would grade you on.
So when would that be due?
When is that due? The thing I do in my graded classes, and I'm guessing it's the right policy for this class too, is we take the class that people stop having questions, and then the class after that it's due. So I expect that when I meet you on Thursday, there will be questions on rounding and estimating. And if there are, then it won't have a due date yet. But if on Thursday there aren't any questions about this, then we'll have it due the next time I meet. So Tuesday of next week.
So Thursday or Tuesday?
I don't know if there's questions Thursday of this week and Tuesday of next week on rounding and estimating, then those 10 questions wouldn't be due until after that. So
Yeah.
Right.
I get what you're saying.
okay, it's 7:45. We're all tired, but let's finish up estimating because it's short. So as we've seen, rounding early can change an answer, perhaps a lot. The one that I skipped over, it changed a lot. But sometimes you want to. So there's a name for that, it's estimating. And estimating is good to quickly get a rough idea of how large the answer should be. So what is 47,900 divided by 12? I can't do that in my head. But if I estimated, then I could. That's too small, I'm sorry, but I'm about to write it bigger, so it will be okay. So 47,900. If I'm rounding to the nearest 10, this is already rounded to the tens. The 12 would just become a 10. Who remembers the shortcut for dividing by 10?
I know it, but I just can't say it for some reason.
I believe you just moved the comma where the 47 is in between, or where in between the 7 and the
There's
9.
a visible decimal
Okay.
point after the ones column. So you move that one
Gotcha.
over, and then it's 47.90. And I could put a 0.0, but that would be kind of silly. So that's my estimate. Whoops, except my comma is in the wrong place now. Right, there we go. That's not the right answer, but that lets me know that if I'm doing something on my calculator and I get something close to 5,000, I can trust I didn't hit a button wrong. Whereas if I'm burning my candle at both ends and I sometimes get a goofy answer, then estimating lets you know, I'm doing something wrong. There was a great problem with that on the oral exam last term, where how expensive of a car can you afford with a $291 per month car payment? And the student did a great thing. They noticed their answer was $5. Even if you don't know how this math works at all, because it's not your class, you still know that if you're paying $291 a month for a car, you're going to be able to afford more than a $5 Matchbox car. Right? So they made a comment on their test. I know this is wrong. The answer has to be in the thousands, not $5, but I can't find my mistake. So estimating, having a sense of, I know about how big an answer should I get, and if I get something that's drastically wrong, I know I goofed up somewhere. That's a valuable skill. So should we do an estimating with addition? Or...
Yeah, I think we should.
Now these problems, when you click on the answer key below them, it will say, note, answers will be different if how much you round is different. So I'm going to pick E just to be a little more interesting. I will copy the problem with some bigger things for those of you looking on small screens. How should I round this? You want to round to tens, hundreds? They all make sense.
Would you do the tens?
Tens, if you want. So 6,040 and 110. The 4 and the 1 here will combine. This one will combine with that 0. If you wanted to write it one on top of the other, you certainly could. Doesn't take that much longer, right?
Do you have to round both of them?
Only because it tells you to.
Oh.
Okay.
In real life, no one will ever ask you to do this. This is just that you are a responsible student on a practice test, and you found out that prices of cars should be hundreds or thousands of dollars, not $5. So you're just in the habit of noticing when your answers are way off, because we all make mistakes on the calculator now and then.
Yeah.
How about multiplying? I can't do that one in my head. What should I round it to? This.
Should we round the tens?
The tenths, we could.
Hundreds.
This one doesn't have hundreds. So I could do 868.5 times 7.5.
Yeah.
That still looks like a lot of work. If I'm just wanting to know if my answer is reasonable when I'm done, I probably would round it to whole numbers, right? I would just go 869 times 8. 9 times 8 is 72. 6 times
So
8.
rounding the ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you wanted to round more, you could.
I guess I wasn't sure if we could leave out the decimal, but it makes sense.
8 times 8 is 64. So, but if I'm doing this problem, I sort of might as well do the whole thing. And for both of them, I want to pull up my calculator.
Yeah, I get that, but I guess in my own head I was thinking that we shouldn't get rid of the decimals.
So rounding is sort of personal, right? You're doing it so that, can you trust your answer? You're not going to get something accurate enough to use on the job as your final answer, but you can figure out if you made a silly mistake. Okay, let's do these before we're done. Some critical thinking. If we are adding up two numbers, sum is adding. If we round both of them up, is our estimated total going to be an overestimate, an underestimate, or it could be either?
Overestimate.
Overestimate. If we are rounding both of them down, are we going to get an overestimate, an underestimate, or either?
We'll underestimate. Or both of them.
If they're both down, then it has to be at least a little too low. It might
Yeah.
not meaningfully too low, but
Yeah.
and then if some are up and some are down, then what will happen?
It could be an over or an under.
It depends on which one rounds more. Okay, congratulations. You're all done with rounding, our first big topic in shapeshifting. You've now thought more carefully than most people about decimals and accuracy and when to round and how much to round. We could move on to fractions. We have another 27 minutes. Or we could make this a study session and just work on some homework, whether it's these 10 exercises or others. What do people want to do?
Sorry, I was reading in chat. What did you say again?
Do you want to make it study session time now for the last half hour, or do you want me to go on with more examples of other things?
Study session.
Study session? Do you want to work on the 10 exercises here, or do you want to do some of the homework in the textbook first?
I would prefer the homework, to be honest.
These ones? Okay. So I'm going to stop recording in just a moment and stop sharing my screen. You can find this on your own. And then you can share your screens as you have questions and hold up your own papers to your cameras and things like that. There was somebody in chat that said, sorry, I don't have a webcam. If you talk to academic, if you talk to the Shed, then they have loaner webcams, if that works for you. Because it's handy at least to be able to hold up your paper to your screen and say, here's my work. What did I do wrong on this one? Also in class, I have my email open on the side. So you can always say, I want to share my work to get doing stuff on the whiteboard, but I don't have a good way to take a photograph of my paper and share it myself in Zoom. I'll just take a photograph and email it or text it to you. And then I can grab that and put it on the whiteboard for you, if that's what's good. So we can do, I'll start a new blank page here. Actually, let me make a comment first. So maybe do textbook problems before these, but then I'll go back to where we can work together. Okay, any last questions before I stop recording about class procedures or things like that? Because if you have them, other people will have them.
No.
Okay, then I will stop the recording.